It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update, as we see if a released WWE tag team are now retired, Aleister Black discusses future dream matches, and could he be set for a shock return to WWE? All that and more coming up in today's video, but first, PW Insider are reporting that recently released WWE Superstar Braun Strowman has been in contact with independent wrestling promotions who have reached out to him to inquire about his services. Promoters are apparently being told that his asking price is in the 5-figure range per appearance, which is of course at least $10,000 and upwards. Strowman appears to have been careful with his WWE money and is in no immediate rush to make any appearances, but is said to be open to working if the offer is right. Braun has stated in the past that he would not work for any other wrestling promotion other than WWE, but this was of course before his sudden release. That's easy to say when you've got a WWE contract, but it seems that his supposed loyalty wore thin when they let him go earlier this month, and money talks. Strowman will be able to wrestle elsewhere beginning August 31st, and it will certainly be interesting to see where the next chapter of his career takes him. Remember that it was Mark Henry that found Braun Strowman and advised WWE to sign him, and look where Mark Henry is now. AEW wrestler Darby Allin has made a name for himself since joining AEW thanks to his chaotic in-ring style, with the Daredevil never afraid to risk his body for the entertainment of the crowd. Darby recently spoke with the Wrestling Perspective podcast and explained that he is not worried about having a long career and is more concerned with giving everything that he has now. Allin said, "I'm all in or nothing for the most part, and I always made a commitment to myself that I'd rather have a real short career and then just push it hard every day than just try to focus on outside projects when the time's up. As of right now, I feel like I'm just gonna keep going and going and going until my wheels fall off. I feel wonderful right now." Hopefully by the time Allin is done, he hasn't hurt himself too badly to even move on to the other projects that he was talking about, but that fear doesn't seem to be a concern for him. Either way, his mentality leads to some thrilling spots, and hopefully he will be able to walk by the time he's done. For the past few weeks, AEW have been forced to move their weekly Dynamite show from Wednesday nights to Friday nights due to a clash on TNT with the NBA playoffs. As to avoid a further clash with WWE Smackdown, Dynamite has aired in the 10 PM time slot as opposed to the usual 8 PM. This has seen a significant drop to the usual viewership, which has almost halved since. There has been a lot of speculation as to whether AEW airing immediately after Smackdown would lead fans of WWE's Blue brand to sample Dynamite whilst in the wrestling mood, but it seems this has not been the case. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer has reported that of people who had both TNT and Fox available in their homes, only 13.77% of people who watched at least 1 minute of SmackDown also watched at least 1 minute of Dynamite. This is less than the crossover between NXT and Dynamite, who used to run directly opposed, with 25% of the audience regularly checking out both shows. AEW Rampage is set to air in the same Friday night 10 PM time slot in August, which at first was said to be Dynamite's equal, but with less viewers likely tuning in, it may not take long before it quickly becomes a B show. It makes me wonder if the day or time slot will be reconsidered by TNT and AEW, although the contract is already signed. Recently, Aleister Black spoke with Renee Paquette on her Oral Sessions podcast and discussed his time with WWE and what his future may hold. One of his biggest advocates, no pun intended, was Paul Heyman, who is said to have been high on Black during his time as executive producer of Monday Night Raw in 2019. Following the news of Aleister's departure from WWE earlier this month, Heyman reached out to the Dutchman and had some words of encouragement. Black told Renee, "He reached out to me on the day that it happened. It was very sad. Paul has always said to me, 'Tom, I think you're 5 years ahead of the business. As brilliant as I think you are, I think that sometimes that's your biggest issue. You're so far ahead mentally that people have to catch up to it.' He also said, 'I still believe you're going to do great things. I am absolutely far from being done.'" The conversation then turned to his future, with Renee asking who he'd like to wrestle now that he is outside of WWE. He named a number of wrestlers from multiple promotions including Impact, AEW and Ring of Honor and said, "I want to get in the ring with Moose, Sami Callihan, Mox, Omega, Christopher Daniels. My god, there is such an array of crazy talent. Jungle Boy is great. I think Powerhouse Hobbs is awesome. Brian Cage, Brody King from Ring of Honor, Homicide. I would love to get in the ring with Homicide. Eddie Kingston is another one." Many, including myself, feel that Aleister Black, who now goes by his former indie name of Tommy End, would be best suited in New Japan Pro Wrestling due to his in-ring style. It seems End agrees and has goals of working for the promotion. He spoke of his love for the country of Japan and New Japan itself and added, "I think it's no secret that I have a lot of love for New Japan. New Japan would be phenomenal. I love Japan, I miss Japan. Even thinking about it gives me butterflies. Never did I feel more like a professional wrestler than when I stepped off the plane at the Narita airport. And I would go to the dojo and start training. It was great. We don't know what the future holds at this point. Well, I know certain parts of my future, but I'm not going to spill the beans here. I'd absolutely love to see Tommy End work with the likes of Kota Ibushi and Minoru Suzuki, two of the finest strikers in the world. With that said though, could this all be a fantasy, as there are now talks that he could be on his way back to WWE? But we'll get into that a little bit later on in the video, but first, let's talk about some more released WWE superstars, which seems to be the theme of today's video, and these wrestlers haven't been seen since their departure from the company last year in September. The former NXT and Raw Tag Team Champions, the Authors of Pain, Akam and Rezar, were let go from the company last year due to apparently budget cuts, and a report from E-Wrestling News over the past day or so has speculated that the duo may have retired, with Fightful also adding that promoters had reached out to the team but were told they had in fact retired from professional wrestling. So this report was backed up by two sources. Fightful then added that AEW had discussed bringing the team into their tag division but were not sure if they were a good fit at the time. As well as this, there were discussions within New Japan, but at the time they weren't bringing new talent over to Japan and they held off due to budget reasons. Fightful were also told that both Akam and Rezar are now working regular jobs. Both men have now hit back at these reports, both posting the same message to Instagram, which reads, "Ain't done yet, bitches." This was accompanied by an image of Akam, Rezar, and interestingly, their former manager Paul Ellering all holding up the middle finger. This seems to suggest that the team are far from retired and could be joined by Ellering were they to sign a contract somewhere else. I'd be happy to see the team back in the business, as they had some great matches during their time in NXT, and there's so many options of where they could end up, with companies beginning to get back on the road. But let me know where you think they should end up in the comments down below. And quickly before we continue, make sure you scroll down and hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos as we head towards 20,000 subscribers. But now you've done that, let's get on with the video. And finally, reports are circulating that Aleister Black could be in line for a shock return to WWE following his sudden release earlier this month, meaning the dream matches that we discussed earlier could become impossible. Black was released from the company on June 2nd and was one of 6 names let go. PW Insider are now reporting that certain people within WWE are pushing for them to re-sign Black, with many feeling that he was cut too soon and that he was a victim of broken promises. Although this hasn't been confirmed, one of the names likely pushing for his return is Paul Heyman, who, as discussed earlier, is a big fan. Not only that, but Aleister Black has gone on record to say that Bruce Pritchard was a big supporter of his during his time in the company, who is the senior vice president and executive director of Smackdown and Raw. Black's 90-day no-compete clause ends on August 31st, so it's likely that if WWE did want to offer him another contract, it would have to be before that date in case case he ends up signing elsewhere. During his streams on Twitch since his release, Black did confirm that during his time in WWE he did ask to go back to NXT when his main roster career came to a stalemate, so perhaps that could be an option that they offer him if they do get in contact. It still remains to be seen whether WWE will in fact be bringing him back to the company or whether high-ups are ignoring the internal calls for his return. But as always, we will keep you updated should there be any further news. And before you go, make sure you check out my video on 10 cancelled AEW plans we never got to see.